It is after 7 p.m. on September 17th, and so we shall begin. I have a bet on what time we are going to finish tonight. I won't disclose it, although I am writing it down right now. We will open this evening with the flag salute. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And Reverend Matthew Wigden from the First Baptist Church will give the invocation.
I invite you to join me in the invocation. Gracious God, as we gather for another town meeting, we do so with gratitude for the blessing and the beauty of the democratic process. The ability to make our own decisions and vote is truly a remarkable experience in the course of human history. While our system is good, it is not perfect, and neither are our decisions or actions. And so may a humble estimation of our limits lead us to a gracious disposition with one another this evening and in every day. As the ancient Proverbs extol, may we be quick to listen and slow to speak, and may our gentle words bring life and health. And may the exhortation to love our neighbors as ourselves be considered in all that we do this evening. In our prayer, we seek divine guidance, wisdom, and favor in the myriad of decisions and choices that we need to make this evening. And may our united desire be for the best of human and nature's flourishing in our beloved town. We also remember the vulnerable and need within our community and beyond, and we extend special prayer for the safety and welfare of those recovering from last week's crisis in the Merrimack Valley, and also for the many who are affected in the past few days and currently by the hurricanes and floodings in the Carolina. Gracious God, we acknowledge the profound gift and divine providence of living in Rockport in the 21st century, and we pray that we would prove ourselves to be faithful stewards of our resources and town in our work as citizens and servant leaders for the common good. Pray this in your name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Matthew. Chair will entertain a motion to omit the reading of the articles in the warrant. Second. Moved and seconded. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Clerk will please read the officer's return on the warrant. You're so far away.
Only one wire to trip over. I, Philip D. Wesley III of the town of Rockport, have on this date, August 20th, 2018, posted the special fall town meeting warrant for the special fall town meeting to be held on Monday, September 17th, 2018, at the Rockport High School in the 2 post offices, the town bulletin board, and 17 other public places throughout the town, including 3 in Precinct 1, 3 in Precinct 2, and 3 in Precinct 3. Signed, Philip D. Wesley III, received October 21, 2018 at 8:40 a.m. Patricia E. Brown, Town Clerk.
Thank you. For those of you in the audience who just can't live without your technology, I have been told that there is Wi-Fi here, free, and the password is welcome back, all lowercase letters. Is that correct? Welcome back. Yes, that is exactly right. There you go. And we are guests of the school this evening, and we're very thankful for that opportunity. A reminder, there is certainly no smoking in the auditorium, but no smoking on school grounds, and that includes any materials, whether or not they're legal in the Commonwealth or not. This meeting will be conducted tonight in accordance with parliamentary procedures as described in Chapter 2 of our bylaws. And we have this wonderful voters booklet, and the procedures are described on pages 8 through 10. I'll just synopsize a few little things. We are going to vote from time to time with these wonderful clickers, If you have a wonderful clicker, that means you have signed in and you're a registered voter. If you're not a registered voter, unfortunately, you need to be back there, but it's a fun place to be. There's a great view up there, and that's not so bad either. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the clickers, and they're described on page 7. I am going to look down at Helen, make sure she's ready, and when I say the word vote, she is going to start the procedure which will allow you to vote. And remember, 1 for yes, 2 for no. And you can press this thing, you can change your mind, you can do all sorts of wonderful things. It records the last vote, and it will glow green to let you know that your vote has been recorded. So if it's red, we have a problem. We have a code red, and let the clerks know or let somebody in the back know, and we'll get you a new machine. And that's Mr. Murphy. Okay, with respect to each article, Mitch Vieira, the interim administrator, or somebody else will read the motion, and our discussion will always be about a motion and not the warrant article itself. It will be seconded and then perhaps explained by the proponent or by Mitch as a proxy. And then, if appropriate, we'll hear from the appropriate committee, either the Finance Committee, the Government Bylaw Committee, or other committee. That committee will state the committee's recommendations and its reasons, and then we will start debate. We'll open up for discussion and eventually voting. If you want to speak, you need to get my attention somehow, and Mitch, Pat, or I will scour the room looking for votes, Lindy, and then once you get recognized, do we have any microphone kids?
We do. We have Carolyn, who's over here, and Evan, where are you?
We have wonderful microphone people who will stand up, and they'll be running around going for you, so you have a microphone so you can speak and we can hear you. Make sure that you identify yourself, giving your name and your address, at least the address the first time, and then you can speak. Unlike maybe the larger government out there in Washington, we must remain civil and keep our comments addressed to the issue and not get personal. And remember, we all love the town, and by extension, we love one another. The bylaw says that I give preference to people who have not spoken on an issue. And so if you're like Hermione Granger and you're always raising your hand, I might see it, but I'll pick on somebody else because it's your meeting. I want to make sure everyone who has input gets the opportunity to give it. When I sense you're ready to vote, I will state the question. And if you have confusion at that point as to what the question is, let us know. And once the voting has begun, discussion is out of order. On my left is Darren Klein of the firm of Copeland and Page, our town council. And if you have any questions for legal, you can let me know. I'll make sure that he gets to those questions. You can also approach him at sidebar. He is capable of doing many things at the same time, but if a question goes to legal, I'm going to give him at least a few seconds to gather his thoughts before giving us the legal opinion. This evening, related articles A and B, and then are related. C, D, E, and F, relating to community preservation, are related. And then it's a lot on zoning, H, I, J, K, L, M, N on zoning. And the only articles that are not related, I'm going to call them the Republican articles because they are G, O, and P. Okay? I think we are ready to go. Can you pick? Using a very sophisticated method, the clerk will pick the first article. K. And so K means we'll go H-I-J-K-L-M-N, and I know you want to say O and P, but we're not going to. And then after those, B. So H-I-J-K-L-M-N-A-B. Got it.
Mr. Moderator, Zoning Board of Appeals Chair Alan Battistelli moves to amend the zoning bylaws, Section 4B, and approve Article H as printed in the warrant and as set forth on page 38 of the Fall Town Meeting Voters Booklet. Board of Selectmen and Planning Board support this motion.
Okay, this is a 2/3. What's that? Well, yeah, I'm waiting for discussion on Article H. We're on H. We're going to go H-I-J-K-L-M-N. Anybody to explain Article H from the Zoning Board, Planning Board?
Hello, Herm Lillier from the Planning Board to speak to Article H. H is simply a change that needs to be done because of the updating of the bylaws, and it also applies to several of the others. So it is not to be looked upon as a change in content as much as it is a matter of trying to stay abreast of the changes that need to be made from time to time.
Any questions on Article H? All right, it is 2/3, but I'm going to just try this. All those in favor, raise your hand. Thank you. All those opposed, the same sign. That motion carries by more than 2/3, and we move on to Article I.
Mr. Moderator, Zoning Board of Appeals Chair Alan Battistelli moves to amend the zoning bylaws, Section 3B, Table of Uses, subsection 1F, and approve Article I as printed in the warrant and as set forth on page 39 of the Fall Town Meeting Voters Booklet. Board of Selectmen and Planning Board support this article.
Moved and seconded. Any explanation on this? Any questions on this? All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. Yeah.
There was a hand with a question.
Oh, we have a question. Yes, wait for the microphone coming up right behind you.
Cook, 171 Thatcher Road. Does this mean any single-family house in Rockport can be changed to a two-family or a four-family?
Let's see if we can get you an answer. We'll hear from Mr. Lilia, Dr. Lilia.
This particular change is being made because of the omission of this phrase from the text that was created, actually I should say the table that was created in 2012. Back in 2004, these text issues were adopted in a paragraph form. And then in 2010, it was decided that we needed both paragraph and tabular form. And then when it went to only a tabular form in 2011, 2012, this particular set of words was omitted from the tables where it had been text from 2004. So yes, you're correct that there is this allowance for houses to be expanded, but it has been in existence since 2004.
Yes. Want to go up front?
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. This is, a correction of something in the table, as Herman Lilja has just told you, but what we've got there is basically a mistake. It's not reasonable that you should be able to convert a single-family house into 4 units as a matter of right. Would you care to have that happen in your backyard? And beyond that, there's the provision that you can change a single-family dwelling into an inn. Now, there's nothing particularly evil or wicked about inns, but inns now are very different from what they were when this was written. I plead ignorance, I don't know when it was written, but a great many years ago. Inns now can apply for entertainment licenses and also liquor licenses, and they become, although a source of handsome income for the proprietors and of joy for those who attend, they become a source of pain and annoyance for the neighbors and the neighborhood. So we could just, approve what the Board of Appeals has asked us to, or we could refer it to the Planning Board. I move to refer this to the Planning Board. And we can't give the Planning Board any directions. That would be well beyond the scope of the article. But if we refer it to the Planning Board, we could hope that they might undertake to hold hearings and solicit public comment and perhaps actually fix it. So I hope you will second my motion and vote to refer it to the Planning Board. It's not going to bring the sky down if we do not vote to approve it tonight. We were offered this exact same proposal 2 years ago, and we rejected it. And we've all lived perfectly well and happily since, and we can live for another year until the Planning Board might consider properly fixing it.
So moved and seconded. So now the question before us is no longer on this ultimate issue. It's whether to refer this for further study. Any questions on that? Dr. Lilja.
Mr. Arsenian raised the issue that he raised 2 years ago when he created or caused enough concern for people to reject this. But please be assured that since 2004, I'm sorry. Very sorry. Anyway, since 2004, the practice has been in place because prior to the tabulation, which omitted this particular phrase, it was in text form, so that the Zoning Board of Appeals has been acting thusly since 2004. And they do that now even though that set of words was omitted, because we had ruling by town council that in fact the implication was already there in other texts. So all you are doing, if you choose to vote this down, is denying the existence of something that's going on anyway. And all we're trying to do is to make the text state exactly what the Zoning Board of Appeals will in fact do.
Mr. Moderator, Alan Macmillan, 18 Story Street. There is a crying, desperate need for affordable housing in Rockport. We'll be voting on community preservation funds to do just that later on. I highly support this. Toby is inferring by what he said that there's going to be a mass infusion of loud rock and roll inns plaguing our town. We already have noise regulations. But the bottom line is we have a desperate need for affordable housing. There are teachers, DPW workers, policemen, firemen, all kinds of folks that can't afford to live here. If someone wanted to convert one of the helicopter houses into 4 units, no pun intended, it would help.
That would really take off.
So I'm in support of this. Thank you.
Anybody else? In the back.
Yeah, Z. Seppel at 92 Granite Street. I wasn't going to speak on this, but since Mr. McMillan referred to the helicopter houses, one of those houses, the first one, is up for sale for $4 million. So I don't think that that's necessarily going to be an affordable partition if it's made into 4 units of $1 million apiece. I support Toby's motion to have this referred to the planning board and have it taken for further study.
Should we hear from the planning board chair to see if this needs further study?
My earlier words were in an effort to say to you that this has been in practice since 2004, and it is, even despite the fact that the words are not there, the current practice of the Zoning Board of Appeals. This is not new, this is old, and all we're trying to do is correct an omission that has existed since 2012.
Okay.
Yeah, Eric Hutchins, 45 Pools Lane. I have just a clarification. The descriptions of this, I'm not even saying pro or con. Is this a change in the zoning bylaw or just a change in the language that's needed? Because I'm hearing practice. Does this change someone that wants to do this from needing to go to Board of Appeals to simply by right, which is not just a change in practice? So I'm just trying to understand, is this a zoning change or just fixing the language, which are two different things?
Let's hear from Citizen Brown first.
Well, actually, it's this town clerk, Pat Brown, town clerk. When we update the bylaws, we cut and paste. In the town clerk's office, we update the bylaws. And we cut and paste what's given to us from the planning board. This was done years ago. They originally had something in a paragraph, and then we went to a chart, and when you update the bylaws, I just take what they give me and insert it. If you look at your booklet, you can see that there were words, any existing dwelling into a two-family or is in bold. Those words were neglected. They were not put in when this originally passed. So it was vague. It used what the bylaws say right now is the conversion of a multiple dwelling with not more than 4 units. What the Board of Appeals has tried to do is clarify that by inserting any existing dwelling into a two-family or. They just want to add those words to what is already in the bylaw. Does that make it clearer? No. All right, let's try again. If you look in your booklet, it says F, the conversion of, and then it's in bold letters, any existing dwelling into a two-family, or. Those words were neglected. They were not put in when I cut and pasted the original bylaw in 2004. We neglected to put them in the bylaw even though they were supposed to be there. Do you understand that? Okay, so the Board of Appeals, going through the bylaws, noticed that those words in bold were missing. They weren't there. So in an effort to make it what was originally passed, they said, we need to add these words, and in order to do so, we need to go town meeting and have just these words, just any existing dwelling into a two-family or, added to what is already existing. Do you understand that? So that's what this motion is doing. It's simply adding those words to an already existing bylaw so that it clarifies the situation. Those words were originally in the bylaw, we left them out by mistake, and we are now adding them back. Okay?
If you're fiddling around with your phone, Google the words scrivener's error. And I believe that is describing what has existed and what they are trying to fix. Would that be correct? The chairman is nodding his head in the affirmative. I'm going to have to revise my estimate as to when we're going to be done.
The only point I would like to make is that with regard to this particular article and subsequent articles, those things that are in bold are in fact the changes. That I'm sorry I did not make a point of saying before, but that's the important part of this particular motion.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense. Anybody other than Toby want to talk about this scrivener's error? Yes, ma'am. Hold on, stand up and we'll get you a microphone.
I'm Betsy Carter, 220 Granite Street. My only concern is that it was on the books in 2004. It's 2018. It's a really different town now. And maybe that's been the way it's been going on, but maybe we'd like to rethink, do we want to do this? Do we want to do this? So that's why I do agree that it should go in front of the planning board, and we should really think about if anything can be turned into a two-family, do we want that? So.
All right. Anybody else? And again, we're only dealing now with the scrivener error portion of this. I would argue that the larger issue as to what bylaws should be read is subject matter of a different day. Yes, in the back.
Rick Caston, 31 High Street. The way I'm reading this now, if we don't make the correction to, you can only increase an existing multiple dwelling, which means it's already a two-family or a three-family by 10%. So what we're doing here is we're allowing them also to apply the same law to a single-family dwelling. Thank you.
If you vote against this, there'll be no change. Those words that we're trying to put back into place already guide the Zoning Board of Appeals because it was pre-existing. And Town Council has said that because there are other references to the possibility of this kind of an expansion, the Zoning Board of Appeals has that right. Nothing will change. You can suggest that it come back before the Planning Board by any other mechanism, and we can reconsider it. But your voting this up or voting it down will change nothing, except to add the words back in to make the text read properly.
Let's hear from Town Council.
Good evening, Darren Klein, KP Law, through the moderator. Yeah, I mean, this is simply, we've already opined because it was a ministerial error that the language that's in bold is currently in place. This is just making the actual text of the bylaw consistent with what the legal definition of the bylaw is because of the clarity that was just simply a ministerial error. So it just makes it clear going forward. Obviously, if the town wants a bylaw change going forward, or the planning board wants a bylaw change going forward, that's a different issue. But this is simply making the language consistent with the way the bylaw is currently being interpreted. Nothing more, nothing less.
Anybody we haven't heard from on this? Yes. Stand up and we'll get the microphone to you. No, you won't have to. Yeah, yes, we do, to record this. We'll get you one. Here it comes.
It's William Tobin, 24 Beach Street. I move that we make a motion and we vote on it, not to vote on this article this evening and hold it off to the fall town meeting until
Well,
we
we already
can
have a
find out.
motion that we have to deal with that's going to refer it to further study.
Well, then
So that's what we're
let's-
working on now.
Then
So-
I make the motion, we
so
move
I'm
it,
gonna-
and let's vote on it. End discussion and vote
You want to
on it.
move the question? All right.
Yes.
So moving the question is going to take a 2/3 vote. We're not going to debate it. It's just going to be move the question. So you just take that off and we'll just write move the question, or you can shut off the text altogether.
Yeah, if you want to do it through this, we have to title it so that the data comes in.
Okay. Just move the question. Yep. So get ready to vote. We're voting on moving the question, which is whether we refer this for further study. So moving the question just means if you vote yes, we're going to go right into the actual vote on the question. And if you vote no, we'll kick this around a little bit more. We're moving the question. The question is whether this should be referred for further study. Okay? We're moving the question. You're going to vote on moving the question in just a moment, as soon as they type it up. Okay. If you vote to move the question, it takes 2/3, and then I'll explain what the question is, which is going to be moving this for further study. If you want to vote yes, press 1, 2, press no, and I'm going to say the word vote. We're moving the question. Moving the question means we don't debate it any further and we vote on the next question. The next question is whether we refer this article to further study back to the planning board. We're cutting, yeah, if we move the question, it means we're not going to talk about it anymore. We're going to go next into the vote on the article, which is to move it for further study. Okay? Moving the question. Moving the question means we're stopping debate and we're going right into the question. If we vote yes to move the question will then be, should we refer this article back to the planning board for further study? Okay? Moving the question. Are we ready? Vote. And the answer is? Okay. Now, the question I am going to phrase to you is, should this matter be referred back to the planning board for further study? Article I. Should it be referred to the planning board for further study? And it is a majority. If a majority of you want to refer this back to further study, back it will go. If you do not vote in the alternative, then we'll still have the original question, which we started with an hour or so ago. Okay. Any questions on that? All right, vote. All right, vote. Okay, we are not referring this for further study. Now we are going to vote on Article I, whether we fix this typographical error / Scrivener's error or not. Any questions on what you're voting on only? Yes. You have a question on what you're voting on? Okay.
I apologize. I was on the planning board probably when the mistake happened, but if I don't understand it, I imagine some others don't, or maybe it's just my ignorance. I'm going back to my original question, but I'll clarify it in a different format. if I came in right now to build 4 units in a 1-unit house, sounds like I have to go to the Board of Appeals. After this change, is there a regulatory change? And then it's by, do you still have to go to the Board of Appeals, or does that change? That was my original question. What changes regulatorily? Or is it just language in the bylaw, which I don't care about?
Let me try this one.
Wasn't answered.
And let's see if Dr. Liddy agrees with me. There is no change. The language that we're inserting was unintentionally omitted. Okay? Just like you see a billboard and it says something and a word was omitted by mistake, they've been acting as though those words have been there all along. And this is to just put the words in that the zoning board has been acting as though they have already existed. The chairman of the zoning board is here and he's nodding in the affirmative. I only want to hear questions having to do with I don't understand what we're voting on, not the merits of this. Yes, ma'am, we'll get you a microphone by one of our wonderful microphone folks. Thank you.
Jera Shoemaker, 14 Old Harbor Road. If there's no change, why do we have to vote?
Did you ever see a sign like, the signs that let you know if you're speeding and maybe one of the digits doesn't quite work? Doesn't that drive you crazy? I think this drove the planning board crazy, and they want to put the words in that they omitted. Is that right?
There is this question as to what our latitude is, if in fact we find a typographical error. A comma omitted, can we put it back in? Can we, change or not change? Can we add words back in that should have been there to begin with? We honestly did not know. The ruling was that the best way to do this is to bring this back before town meeting and have you vote on it again. But in reality, it is a typographical error. It is an omission by chance.
Got a microphone heading your way, Alan.
Alan Bastelli, 57 Phillips Avenue, Chairman of Board of Appeals. Yeah, the way it's practiced right now at the board level is it's in the bylaws, so people come in from out of town, they can see the 3 and 4 family, that they can do that. It doesn't show any longer that you can do a 2 family. The board is, still practicing this as reality now, but it should be transparent to everybody that reads the bylaw that that's the way it is. It never got voted out. It doesn't make any sense to be able to make your house into a 3 family, but not a 2 family. It just got dropped.
All right, is there anybody else who doesn't understand what we're doing? We're taking those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 words that were just omitted all these years and putting them back. But they've always been pretending that they never went away, I guess. Anyone not understand that and want to talk about that? Not the merits of this. Melanie.
Melanie Waddell, 18 Forest Street. The way that, it might have been a mistake that it didn't go in, but the way that I read this is it takes a multiple dwelling, right? And now you're saying any existing dwelling. So that's taking a single and changing it into more. Before, if the mistake was that it was multiple. You know what I mean? So now you can take any existing dwelling and turn it into more, right?
My understanding is this language existed in previous versions of the bylaw, and when it went to press, those words didn't go back in. Is that right? Okay. So, if you are in favor of adding these words back in a moment, I'm going to say the magic word. When I say that magic word, you're going to press 1 for yes and 2 for no. Ready? Vote. And that motion carries. We go on to Article J. Okay. All right, Article J, also 2/3.
Mr. Moderator, Zoning Board of Appeals Chair Alan Battistelli moves to amend the zoning bylaws, Section 8C3, and approve Article J as printed in the warrant as set forth on pages 39 and 40 of the Fall Town Meeting Voters Booklet. Board of Selectmen and Planning Board support this article.
Moved and seconded. Anything from either zoning or planning on this one?
Two typographical errors also. Subsection 4 is emboldened and should read that way, and section 7 should read section Roman numeral 8.
Okay, Monday night, fixing typos. Any questions on that? Okay, Toby.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. Herman Lilia would have you believe that if we fix these typographical errors, everything is in good order. It couldn't be further from the truth. The coastal floodplain section of the zoning, that's Roman numeral 8, a whole section, is a deplorable mess. Not quite start to finish, but in large part. The parts of it that are most wrong are the use regulations, that's section C. In C, it is portions 3 and 4. Portion 3 deprives you, if you're in the coastal floodplain area, of any substantial change to your building, any new construction, except as in section 3.4. And section 3.4 enumerates a number of uses that are to be encouraged. That is the word. The word encouraged does not belong anywhere in the zoning code. Things need to be permitted, forbidden, permitted subject to conditions, or permitted subject to special permits by the Board of Appeals. So whoever wrote it made a total hash of it. And it's worse than that, because when you get to section E, the Board of Appeals can let you off the hook where you've been spited and are unable to use your property in the coastal floodplain. They can grant you a special permit, but only if your lot is less than half an acre and surrounded on all 4 sides by lots with structures that are below the coastal floodplain elevation. So basically, the whole thing makes no sense. And I move to refer it to the planning board in the hopes, I can't promise you anything, that they will fix it. And I can tell you that the planning board is unwilling. They have other priorities. They're putting a lot of their time and energy into plans, grand, or I would say grandiose and misguided plans for the area around the train station. And they would rather spend their time at that. But if you have a leaking roof, you don't go out and build a swimming pool or a gazebo. You fix the leaking roof. So the planning board ought to bestir themselves to fix this, and if you will vote for my motion to refer it to the planning board, perhaps, just perhaps, if enough of us attend planning board meetings and hold their feet to the fire, we might get something worth having for a coastal floodplain section of the zoning.
Very interesting stuff. Out of order, though, the article is just dealing with fixing 2 typos. I actually agree it would be nice to look at these in a more global way, but tonight we're just fixing 2 typos. So unless you want to have it go back to the planning board to fix those 2 typos, if that's what you want, we'll proceed with it. All those in favor of going back to the planning board to fix those 2 typos, please raise your hand. All right, thank you. Opposed, the same sign. The motion fails. We now go back to Article J. We have two changes here to fix these two typographical errors. Any more questions on that, which is before us tonight? Okay, this requires a 2/3 vote. Are you ready? If you want to fix these two typos, you're going to press 1 for yes. If you don't, press 2 for no. Vote. And the motion carries. We move on, but by more than 2/3 vote. We move on to Article K.
Mr. Moderator, Zoning Board of Appeals Chair Alan Battistelli moves to amend zoning bylaws Section 13C6 and approve Article K as printed in the warrant and as set forth on pages 40 and 41 of the Fall Town Meeting Voters Booklet. Board of Selectmen and Planning Board support this article.
Moved and seconded. Either from zoning or planning, anyone want to explain this to us? Is this one a typo?
No.
Okay.
This is not a typo. This is
Not a typo.
This is an update to put the Town of Rockport bylaws in accordance with state law. Permits can run for 2 years, and we are changing this from 1 year to 2 years to be in accordance with state law.
Okay, something substantive to talk about. Exciting. Anyone have any questions or comments on this? Yes, Alan.
Alan Bastelli, 57 Phillips Avenue, Chairman of the Board of Appeals. This one, Article K, going to 2 years. It takes so long to permit things today that once you get your special permit from the Board of Appeals and you go back to your surveyor and you go back to your structural plans and you go back to all the steps you got to do with your lawyers, your this, your that, a lot of the people can't get it done and start it within the year. They end up having to run back and get this extension. This is just a courtesy to the people in the town of Rockport that if you come in and you get approved, then you have, as allowed by state law, you have the 2 years.
Yes.
It's on now. Just a point of clarification.
Please state your name just for our records.
Denise Donnelly, 72 Pigeon Hill Street. My question is this required by state law or is it allowed? And are we making the change to be in compliance, or are we making the change because it is allowed and we can keep it at 1 year if we choose?
Town council probably should be the one referring or discussing this, but we are allowed to go to 2 years. We don't have to go to 2 years.
Don't have to, you're allowed to. Any other questions about this? Okay, you've heard the motion. In a moment, I'm going to say the magic words. If you are in favor of this, press 1 for yes. If you're opposed, 2 for no. Ready? Vote. The motion carries by more than 2/3, and we move on.
Mr. Moderator, Zoning Board of Appeals Chair Alan Battistelli moves to amend the zoning bylaws Section 1C and approve Article L as printed in the warrant and as set forth on page 41 of the Fall Town Meeting Voters Booklet. Board of Selectmen and Planning Board support this article.
Moved and seconded. Either from zoning or planning, anyone want to talk about this? Or are you on the fence about it?
No, this is, again, something that makes the bylaws consistent with state law. The state law says that it can be the number 7, and we are advancing this to the number 7 to be consistent with.
So this is not fixing a typo. All right, let's hear from Mr. Battistelli, then we'll hear from Toby, then anyone else.
So what it does is you end up putting up a 6-foot fence. You go down, you buy your 6-foot fence wherever you buy it, and you put it up in the air, and if it's a couple inches off the ground, it would be illegal under the old bylaw. If you got a 6-foot fence that's off the ground, if you take your wooden fence, you put it on the ground, it'll rot out in short order. The state, in their wisdom, decided to change that in the state building code, so we're trying to conform with that idea, and it's still a 6-foot fence up, but it's up in the air, so it's allowable to the height of 7. This does not change anything about the ocean side of the street. That does not get struck. A fence is only allowed to be 4 feet tall on the ocean side of the last public way.
Toby.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I would go back to Denise Donnelly's question. Is it something that we have to do to conform to the state, or is it something that we're choosing to do? Because if it's something that we're choosing to do, I believe it's a mistake. 6 feet is plenty for a fence, and if you want more, perhaps you should be planting trees or shrubs. Fences are not generally a thing of beauty. There might be cases where you would want one of 7 feet or even more if you had somebody's parking lot in your backyard. The regulations that we have for parking areas and the fences for them are woefully inadequate, one of the many things in the zoning that need fixing, but a 7-foot fence is not a good idea. So could we get the answer on whether we have to do this or not? And if we don't have to do it, if we're not required to go to the 7 feet because the state has done that, then I think we should reject it and come up with something else, namely 6 feet. Thank you.
Darren Klein, KP Law, through the moderator. Under the amended state building code, it states that a building permit may not be, is not required for fences not over 7 feet high. So this change would make it consistent with the building code.
Any questions, comments? I can't see over a 6-foot or a 7-foot fence, so it really doesn't matter to me. Yes?
Denise Donnelly, I'm still not clear. Is this, again, compliance or allowed? It will be consistent, but is it compliance or allowed? Can you clarify?
Thank you, Darren Klein, through the moderator. Different than the last question, it does state in the state code that you're not allowed to require a building permit for fences under 7 feet high. So in this case, I would say it is required to be consistent with the state building code and to avoid challenges on those grounds.
Required, then?
Correct.
Required. Any additional questions on this? 2/3 vote. 1 for yes, 2 for no. Vote. Motion carries by more than 2/3. We move on to Article M. M.
Mr. Moderator, Zoning Board of Appeals Chair Alan Battistelli moves to amend the zoning bylaws, Section 4A11, and approve Article M as printed in the warrant and is set forth on page 42 of the Fall Town Meeting Voters Booklet. Board of Selectmen and Planning Board support this article.
Moved and seconded. Any explanation from zoning or planning? And welcome back, by the way.
This is a bit more substantive. We advocated and bylaws were approved back in 2015 with regard to expanding side setbacks for houses over 4,000 square feet and expanding them from 15 to 20 feet, and over 6,000 for side setbacks of 25 feet. However, this is based on square footage, GFA so-called, and there are many people who come into town who want to expand the size of their houses, and the existing house that they have conforms with the side setbacks, that is 15-foot side setbacks in many instances. If it's a conforming house, then it does. If they expand the size of the house about 4,000 square feet, technically, under the way the bylaw is currently written, they would have to reduce the extension of their sidewalls out towards the side setbacks from 15 feet, so that then, therefore, there would be 20 feet. So they would have to bring in those sidewalls. That makes no sense. If they, in fact, make an addition onto this house that already has conforming side setbacks, and the addition now conforms to the new side setbacks because the total square footage is over 4,000 square feet, then we feel that is a legitimate approach to and a legitimate way of trying to maintain the views in town that we currently have without people building structures that continue to reduce the amount of sea that we want to look at from time to time as we go around the town. So in this instance, as long as the structure that is pre-existing doesn't consume more side setback space, it already is conforming at 15 feet, then an addition to that house that then conforms to the new side setback of 20 feet, if the total square footage for the house goes over 4,000 square feet, then we feel we have still managed to maintain the perspectives in town that we would like to see, the quaintness, and therefore we're making this subtle change to the bylaws that were passed in 2015.
Mr. Battistelli.
I think Herm did a good job on that one. What this does is that we ran into one case where somebody wanted to increase their house. Their house was 25 feet tall, and they wanted to increase their house in size. And we got into a lot of the questions as to how the bylaw worked and functioned. And we realized that if a house is at 15 feet and it's all completely conforming right now, and the person wanted to make it into 4,000 square feet, they were conforming for it. And if they came in with a plan with all their additions completely met the bylaw, so that plan has to be, you have to be complete. Now, any addition would have to be at 20 feet, but this only refers to the existing part of your house. And if everything you're coming in with is going to go with the 20 foot, and you have this thing, right now, we would have to give you a variance, which is very, very unlikely, because it's hard, you can't prove a hardship. I mean, every case is based on the individual case. But even if everything you came in with was conforming, we're in a position where you would require a hardship. Whether it would be given or not, that's not very likely, and that's the case. So right now, when we went to KP Law with this one, we got a response back from Amy Quessel saying that in this bylaw, there's a lot in the bylaw, and it helps us with our views around town. But this case here, where you suddenly have the old part, it becomes non-conforming, and it would require a variance. That decision, we can refer this to town attorney. I think there should be a comment on this one. Again, at that time, when Amy was doing it, said that requirement for a variance may not be defendable. We like to write decisions that are defendable. Obviously, the town walks into a lawsuit, and we all have to spend the money to defend it. And you want to write decisions that are defendable, and the variance for that part of the house may not stand up in court. So we're asking that we are allowed to let them put that kind of an addition on with a special permit. Not that they'll definitely get it, but the consideration would be for special permit.
Yes, in the back, we'll get you a microphone.
Paul Franklin, 3 Story Street. I'd like to know if approving this, would it create a loophole that would allow somebody to build a non-conforming structure by doing it in stages?
The old building in stages loophole question. Alan?
The answer is no. As soon as you, whatever permit, if you have multiple permits, once you push that permit in, that's going to push it over 4,000 square feet. You now need relief from the new setbacks of 20 feet. And the special permit is it more the criteria is it more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing structure. So the answer is you're going to be into this once you go over that line in your square footage to over 4. And if you go beyond that, you end up with 25-foot setbacks. It depends what you're trying to do. There's nothing automatic. You pay your $300, you come on into the board, and you're paying your architect for the right to come in, and the answer may be no. So, but you're coming as soon as you cross the line.
Any other questions? Yes.
Tom Meekus, 73 Marmion Way. I followed this in 2015 when it came up at the planning board, and I saw how it was implemented at the Board of Appeals. And the case that Alan cites about the house that was going to become non-conforming because of this increase in that area, it actually worked out very well, in my opinion. The house was rebuilt, the side setbacks were increased. We now have 20 feet instead of 15 feet. Looking from Marmion Way, you can see the twin lights instead of one light. I don't want to change this.
In the back.
Laura Hallowell, 37 High Street. Am I understanding that if the house is going to be over 4,000 square feet, that it still has to have the 20-foot setback, or is this allowing them to go back to the 15-foot setback? I don't understand.
Yep, okay. Well, let's hear from council.
Darren Klein, KP Law, and if I'm wrong, correct me, but really what this change is doing is it's allowing somebody to request and apply for a special permit to alleviate itself from the 20-foot setback. It doesn't guarantee, it just allows them to apply for a special permit as opposed to a variance, which is a much more difficult standard.
It's a special permit for an allowance with regard to the side setback, but only for the addition. It doesn't change the main house. Right. And so it's because the addition, I shouldn't say that way. It's the total structure is because the principal structure that was existing has conforming 15-foot side setbacks in this theoretical situation. The addition must conform to the new side setbacks, if it goes over 4,000, of 20 feet for the side setbacks. So it's a permit to allow the total GFA of the house to be looked upon in a multifaceted approach. The old part of the structure is only 15 feet. The new part conforms at 20 feet. And theoretically, you would, under the existing law, everything should be then 20 feet. But that means that you must effectively tear down the original house. And an advocate of that situation or that eventuality has spoken and said it's a good idea. And in one sense of the word, it might be. But it can also be looked upon as an extreme approach to trying to live with the new guidelines.
So, Robert Visnick, 40 Jordan's Lane. I've got a question for Mr. Battistelli. So I have a house that was built and I needed 15 feet side setbacks, and so I built my house out to 15 feet on each side, and it was a house of under 4,000 square feet. And then I have a bunch of children who never seem to leave. I want to do an addition somewhere to the middle of my house, and now I go over 4,000 square feet, but I haven't built out to the sidelines. I'm just building it in the middle. What would happen under the old law, and then what would happen under this new law as you propose it?
As you said, Bob, you're going to build it in the middle. The middle meaning is that anything you're coming in with, that addition has to meet the new setback. That has to be at 20 feet. Then you have, if this doesn't pass tonight, what you have to do is you got to rip down the part of your 5 feet of your existing house, or get a variance. And your likelihood of that variance is not very high. So that's the answer to that question. You would be looked at to see, is it appropriate? And again, if this passes tonight, the Board of Appeals will be looking at it as a special permit, and is this an appropriate location for this, blah, 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 and all the other criteria for a special permit. So right now, you're most likely ripping part of your house down. The outcome of the one that's been referred to earlier tonight, that house was, it made the 15-foot setback, so it had been conforming on that side, and the house was 25 feet tall, as I mentioned earlier. Outcome when we denied a variance was, for that section of the house, was that instead of a 25, so they did move the house, as the gentleman mentioned. They did take the house down, move it to 20 feet, and then instead of having a 25-foot tall house, you got a 30-foot tall house across setback to setback. It wasn't really a win. It can be viewed in different ways. The gentleman felt that was a win. The board felt it was a loss, that we would have been able to give that person relief by special permit. And then the question arose with town attorney at that time, questioning the legality of only this piece of the bylaw. So that the decision, it can be challenged. If you got denied a variance and you decide you don't want to knock the house down, you want to fight it, will it be defendable in court? That has not been discovered yet.
Maybe I'll just ask my kids to move out. Toby.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. Alan Battistelli touched on the standards for special permits and ended with and et cetera. I'm asking that either the Board of Appeals or Town Council read out the standards for special permits, because that's what you've got to defend you if you have such a structure going up in your neighborhood, across the street, next door, and you feel that the value or the aesthetics of your property are threatened. So could we have the standards read out for special permits? And I would point out that the Board of Appeals is not keen on variances because the standards for those come out of state law. They can't change them. They're much higher than the standards for special permits, and so they're loath to take a chance and issue a variance unless they're quite certain that the law will uphold them. I think that's a good thing, that they ought to be cautious in such circumstances.
We'll get you that legal opinion in a moment. Anybody else? All right, we will hear from Attorney Klein in just a moment. So 2 guys walk into a barn.
I mean, I'm not going to be able to give you the exact standard at this moment, but it's defined in your local bylaws and is a reasonableness standard. It's a much easier standard to defend. It's basically left to the discretion of the Board of Appeals based upon your own bylaws, whereas the variance is a much more difficult standard that's only supposed to be given in extraordinary circumstances, and that's set by state law. Again, the special permit is more of a reasonableness standard based upon your own local bylaws. And obviously, this would be now an added reason where a special permit could be given based upon the discretion and reasonableness of the Board of Appeals.
Any other questions? Any other questions? All right, you have heard the motion. If you are in favor of this change, you're going to press 1 for yes and 2 for no. Vote. Look like the motion failed. Motion fails. 119 in favor and 63 opposed, giving us 65% in favor and 35% opposed. We move on to Article N.
Mr. Moderator, Zoning Board of Appeals Chair Alan Battistelli moves to amend the zoning bylaws, Section 1D, and approve Article M as printed in the warrant and as set forth on page 43 of the Fall Town Meeting Voters Booklet. Board of Selectmen and Planning Board support this article.
Moved and seconded. Any explanation or discussion from zoning or planning? And there was, believe it or not, a typo. It's Article N here. We won't take much time to fix that, Mr. Penn.
Since the time with that we sent in these articles, they went to the planning board, a lot of busy people in my board. Article N is actually something in discussions with the building inspector that Mr. Orlando does not recommend. We have a lack of definition in this one as to what will trigger. So this one, at this time, the board would recommend be tabled, sent back to for review.
Any questions? Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't. State it again. You want to withdraw it? What's that? He's withdrawing his motion. All right. Anybody else want to make a motion under this article? Seeing none, we move on to A, which will be followed by B, which will be followed by G. A, then B, then G.
Mr. Moderator, Finance Committee Chair Bill Wagner moves that the town appropriate and transfer the sums set forth in the Fall Town Meeting Voters Booklet on page 29, all for the purpose of paying unpaid bills and adjustments from the previous fiscal year. Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee support this article.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. We move on to Article B.
Mr. Moderator, Finance Committee Chair Bill Wagner moves that the town amend the votes taken under Articles 5, 5A, 5B, 5C, 6, 6A, and/or 6B of the April 7, 2018 Annual Town Meeting by transferring the sums set forth in the Fall Town Meeting Voters Booklet for Article B motion on page 30 and in the amounts and for the purposes specified therein. Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee support this article.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries, and it was unanimous. We move on to Article G. And G will be followed by... No, G, O, and P are not related, so. But it is O. G will be followed by O. So now we will go.
Mr. Moderator, Board of Selectmen Chair Sarah Wilkinson moves to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court for special legislation and approve Article G as printed in the warrant and as set forth on pages 36 and 37 of the Fall Town Meeting Voters Booklet. Board of Selectmen support this article.
Don't you hate when that happens? Let's take a moment. Everybody stand up and kind of move around a little bit.
Movement break,
Kind of wiggle around. Yeah, you want to go in the aisle, do a little down dog, little yoga move, you can do that. Kind of stretch. Say hi to your neighbor. Tell your neighbor you love them. All right, that was good. Now everybody sit down. Well. I've been told that's the face I make when I do yoga. Pretty much. All right, have a seat, please. Select Person Wilkinson, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. In 2012, the town voted overwhelmingly to approve a license for the sale of beer and wine to be granted to a grocery store. This past spring, the Board of Selectmen granted that license to the Whistle Stop Market. While the license has been granted to them, it has not yet been issued. The board has given them until November 8th to be up and running as a full grocery store, and then the license will be issued. If it is not a fully functioning grocery store at that point, the board can grant the license to another party. At the same time last spring, other individuals came to the selectmen interested in the beer and wine license. After further discussion, we learned that their interest is not in the grocery store license, but in beer and wine licenses for specialty and gourmet stores. The board thinks it is appropriate to support 2 of these licenses at this time. If this passes, the board will outline the definitions of specialty stores and gourmet stores in our alcohol regulations, as we did in the past when we first allowed alcohol with a meal, which seems so long ago now. The first 2 parties to come to the board are here this evening to discuss what they would like to do. They're both local, long-standing Rockport families and business owners who are looking to continue to operate and grow their businesses here in town, serving locals and visitors. The selectmen firmly believe, unanimously, that these licenses can be an extremely valuable tool to help these local business owners survive and thrive while serving residents what they want. I will remind you that the grocery store ballot vote in 2013 was 1,400 people in favor, 180 against. And according to comments I see on Facebook, it's not just the groceries that residents are interested in. To briefly explain the process, if this passes tonight, the vote will go to the state legislature as a home rule petition, as it did the last time. Once it comes back from the legislature, it will go to a town-wide ballot vote. And that can either be in May or November, or we could call a special election for it. If it passes at the ballot, it then goes into effect immediately. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
All right, you've heard the motion. Any questions, comments? Anyone want a drink? Yes, ma'am. We'll get you a microphone. We won't get you a drink.
Carol Cook, Thatcher Road. The way this is written, it looks to me like every year you could issue up to 2 licenses. It doesn't say one time. It says annually you can issue up to 2 alcohol licenses. I mean, it just doesn't seem clear to me.
Well, the licenses...
Does this mean every single year you can issue 2 licenses?
No, the licenses have to be renewed annually. Sorry, should I not have...
So you can't issue 2 new ones every year. You review the license of the existing license holder every year.
Right, so it's just the way that it was written. I think it should say one time we can issue 2 licenses.
Darren Klein, KP Law, that would be incorrect, or at least not the purpose. The licenses are one-year licenses, so they have to be either renewed or other people can apply annually. If we if we wrote it the way you suggested, then they would have it in perpetuity. That's not the purpose.
Okay, so the way this is written...
We can't have discussions back and forth, I'm sorry, but we have to go on and make sure we hear from everybody. So, Toby.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. This is not the first time we've been offered this proposal. The Board of Selectmen attempted to tack this onto a petition article for 3, as it turned out. The petition was for 4 full alcohol licenses last year. And I found it extraordinary, but the moderator and town council decided that that was within the scope of Ian Crown's petition article, and we voted it down. I believe we did the right thing. These licenses were first mentioned at a Board of Selectmen meeting perhaps a month, maybe 2 months before the last town meeting, when Sarah Wilkinson said that 2 people, she's again referred to them but not by name, had asked the board for these specific sorts of licenses. At no time did the Board of Selectmen discuss the advisability of the licenses, nor was it ever said that some town committee or board had investigated whether the town needed or wanted such licenses. It was just assumed to be a good thing. And here we are again. This is a classic example of special interest legislation. It's being done, and there are no bones about it, for the benefit of the 2 people who asked the Board of Selectmen to ask the town meeting for the licenses. It's not the first time we've been asked for special interest legislation. That would also certainly describe the proposal for the full alcohol license yoked with the grocery store. And we approved that. There seemed to be a consensus that the town badly needed, perhaps desperately needed, a grocery store, and now perhaps at last we're on the verge of getting one. And these licenses, if we approve them, would perhaps be competing with the grocery store. Perhaps it's not appropriate to consider such things, but we've already indulged in, if you will, special interest legislation and are being asked to again. So we ought to weigh both whether it's appropriate to be indulging these individuals and whether it's going to be a good thing for the town, given the town's need for a successful grocery store.
Yes, in the back. We'll stand up. We'll get you a microphone.
Hi, my name is Regina Lane, 38 South Street in Rockport. My husband and I own Seaview Farm, and we are one of the 2 people that are asking if it is available. We would like to sell craft beer and wine, local wine, in our farm stand. It is not a special interest. It's once we heard there is the possibility of an alcoholic license being available, we decided to just let them know we had an interest in selling it if that became a possibility. I'm not asking anyone to do any special favors. It's just, it would be a nice addition. And as I said, it would be craft beer and local wine that we would be adding. We wouldn't be looking to add many other kinds of things. If it happens, that's great, but I want it understood that we asked for no special attention to this. It's just that we heard that the availability might come up for the town to vote. If the town votes that that's something they want, we'd like you to know that we would like to be one of the people that would be able to sell it to you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Mr. Murphy. Nice tie. Like it. Yeah. Fall town meeting.
For the Board of Selectmen. I support this article completely. I think this is, when alcohol came into Rockport about 10, 12 years ago, it certainly has made a positive addition to the town. You go drive through in the middle of February and you can see the restaurants filled with people. So I think it's a good thing. And I think this will not affect the supermarkets because it's going to be a specialty store where fine wine and beer and cheese. So I don't think there's going to be any competition on that. And it's not special interest. We're not trying to do anything different. If you don't want it, don't vote for it. If you would like it, vote for it. So I support this, and I know the Board of Selectmen does as well. Thank you.
Just to clarify the point about this certainly isn't a special interest. At this point, I believe there are 5, maybe 6 interested parties in the licenses. It just so happens that the first 2 who had applied, who showed interest months ago, wanted to come here this evening and speak.
If you stand, we'll get you a microphone right away, or you can run like Mr. Battistelli did right up to the front. Either way.
I don't want to run. Paige Eaton, 6R High Street Court. I fully support this, and I think, frankly, we should have more than 2. But my question is really more about specifying this as gourmet and specialty food stores as opposed to a grocery store. I've been to the Whistle Stop Market. I love it. It's great. I can get fresh fruit, eggs, meat. It's fantastic, and Mr. Smith is doing a great job with it, but it's also pretty specialty food. A lot of the items that he's stocking right now are specialty cheeses, specialty crackers, it's the whole food variety, which is great, but I'm not sure that counts as, say, like your market basket kind of grocery store. So I really just wonder what the semantics are here. I mean, I would rather just vote for 3 grocery store licenses or 3 licenses to also sell cheese with wine. I think that we don't necessarily need to not vote for this to get that done, but I think that we're just nitpicking at it at this point. But I still support this, and if this is the only way to do it, then that's fine.
I think it would be appropriate to ask somebody on the board, what are you thinking about for these definitions?
That would actually, it would be discussed by the board as soon as it passes, to be honest, and it would be done in a public meeting with public input. I think back to when it first passed, and I was actually on the Alcohol Regulations Advisory Committee. I believe it was like 13 years ago. And at that point, we got together and we wrote, Bob, weren't you on it?
Yes, I was.
You were on it. And we got together and we came up with the definition of a meal, because at the time you could only get alcohol with a meal in a restaurant. And we came up with a definition, and you had to have china, and it went on for months and months. So at this point, I think we're pretty practiced in that. So the board, at this point, I don't think we need any special committee. I think the Board of Selectmen could just come up with it with some public input. And I think we've also heard, and the town administrator has heard, from the people interested in the license what they're interested in selling. I think we all know what Seaview Farm sells, and I believe that the other business owner is going to speak as well.
Any other questions? Yes, you can only ask a question if you were recently married. Oh, okay.
Is this a question or can I?
Go ahead, Mr. Porter.
John Porter, 269 Granite Street, and I am one that has applied or gone to the selectmen asking for one of the liquor licenses, which had first come about when the grocery licenses were on the ballot in the fall or the spring election. And we're looking to expand for cheese, wines, beer, keep fresh seafood going all year. Right now, there's no place in Rockport that you can do fresh seafood all year.
You want to defer to your newlywed wife? Normally, we don't allow that, but under the circumstances, we will allow that.
Lindsay Smith, soon-to-be Porter, 269 Granite Street. We just feel that we are looking to speak to mostly our tourists. We are not looking specifically for our locals. That is what Jay Smith, I believe, is trying to do, is speak to the locals with his grocery store, which I think that is fabulous. But we are looking more towards our downtown tourists, and I think that equal opportunity for these licenses would grant a big jump for our tourist industry, which is one of the main things that run this town. And it hurts me as a part of our hospitality that I have to send people losing their parking spots to go into Gloucester and bring back their wine, that they just want to sit at their hotel or look at their porch and watch their sunset to have a bottle of wine. So that is all we're trying to do. We want to have Roy Moore's seafood all year round and also offer specialty local wines, local beers. You know, this is no, we want to get the town drunk. You know, we just want to offer things that could really boost our tourism and our business. So thank you very much.
And just for everybody else out there, if your friends did not show up to town meeting, they had some excuse or other reason they didn't want to come, if you can show up to town meeting on your honeymoon, you have no excuse not to come to town meeting. Just want to let you know. Anybody else out there want to talk to this article, honeymoon or not? In the back.
First of all, I'm not a resident.
Please state your name just for our records here.
Louis Linquano.
Are you a town
I pay taxes.
voter?
I pay taxes and I own a few properties in the town. I am not a resident. Am I allowed to speak?
Yeah, unfortunately, you're not allowed to speak unless the moderator gives you special dispensation, so I have to think about this for a moment.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess some of you people know me. I guess I'm the most affected by this thing.
Please.
I'm the person that owns the nearest package store. Whether or not you put beer and wine in the town of Rockport, which I agree you probably should have it anyway, but not to be affected, but 5 years ago, and it's on record and I have proof of this, I applied for a liquor license in the town of Rockport, which went on record, never notified, so I feel that if there's going to be a license available for liquor, then I should have at least the opportunity to be invited to the meeting or at least asked to the fact, because I do own a lot of property in Rockport, and I would consider putting a store here like everybody else does. So I just feel it would be at the next meeting, I guess you have, and I will bring the letter to the lawyer to show him, and it's never been opened, it's been sealed and dated, and one went to the town, of when I did apply for the license. So I just, in fact, would like a fair shot at it. I pay a lot of money in taxes. I feel I'm a good neighbor. I have no disrespect to anybody who wants to get into business. I'm old enough now, I'm leaving it for the kids anyway. So at this point in my life, I would just like the opportunity to come to the board, show you the letter that was supposedly first on record applying for a liquor license in the town of Rockport. Thank you.
All right. I want to be able to see your voting clicker to make sure you're registered voters so we can comport with the bylaws. I see somebody in the back that looks like they have such a necklace. Please stand and we'll get you a microphone. All right, we'll get you a microphone. One of our intrepid microphone people zooming up the stairs, and we'll get you a microphone.
And it works. I'm Jay Smith from 45 Mount Pleasant Street. And I'll tell you, at the town meeting a couple months ago, I was shocked that somebody would put this thing through town meeting at the last minute when I was trying to do this. People knew I was trying to do this grocery project. I've been trying to convince people for 7 years to bring a grocery store to Rockport. And I finally said, you know what? And the reason they originally didn't bring it was because they didn't have a liquor license availability. And then that came through, and then they said, well, Rockport's not big enough, it doesn't have enough people, they won't do it. So finally, I got the idea in my head that I'm gonna do something nice for the townspeople, maybe help to boost our business at Cracker Jack, which needs some help. It's been a slow store there. And I said, well, it's a lot of money to put a grocery store in, but people really want it. And, well, the beer and wine license, that'll be the safety blanket, you know, the safety net under it, because it's the only license in town. And I did the study, I did a lot of PR, I went through the process. We're opening the store. We're getting new things in every week. Every week, we're getting the grocery store coming. We've invested a huge amount of money on it, with the understanding we had the safety net of the beer and wine license coming down the pike. And now, at the last minute at the last town meeting, and then behind the scenes now, and I had words with one of the selectmen the other day about it. I am so disappointed that this has been railroaded through. Nothing against the Lanes or the Porters, who are wonderful people and good business people in town. But you know, give me a chance before you knock me off my feet.
Yes, in the back, while we have the microphone person, are you a voter, sir? Do we have?
Ken Barnes, 13 South Street.
Nice.
Unfortunately, my name is not on the rolls, so I'll need permission of the chair to have the floor as well.
Are you not a voter?
I am a voter, but my name is not on the rolls. I've lived here 2 years, but it's not on the rolls, so I'll fix that with the town. So I will also need the permission of the chair.
We'll fix it right here, but go ahead.
I and my son-in-law also have submitted a proposal to the board. I think it has merit, like all of the proposals have merit, but I do think everyone who has spoken to it has a reasonable question, and that is, what will the selection process be? Because as long as it's transparent and everyone has an opportunity to make their case, I don't think there'll be any hard feelings whichever way it goes, as long as the board does make clear what the criteria will be, what the weighting will be. Is it first come, first serve? Is it some other menu of interests? There has to be some form of transparency so that those of us who are interested in this business all know that it was a fair and level playing field before a final decision is made. I think that's probably fairly obvious.
All right, registered voters. We only want to hear from registered voters, unfortunately, or fortunately. Yes, sir, in the back. Microphone coming right to you.
Okay. Paul Franklin, 3 Story Street. I think the gentleman that just spoke raised a great point, and I would like to make a motion to send this back to the Board of Selectmen to define what a grocery store and what a specialty or gourmet store would be before we make a decision on this.
Moved and seconded. There's a motion now to refer back to the Board of Selectmen for further study and definition. We'll talk about that. We're speaking to the motion. Go ahead. We haven't heard from you all night, Don.
You missed me, I'm sure. Do I have a good time?
Nice tie. Nice
Thank you
tie.
very kindly. It's patriotic. The definition has already been put forward by the Board of Selectmen, but there's further input that's needed to define that to everybody's satisfaction. To speak to Mr. Smith's point, first I would say that we are very grateful that you've taken the initiative to do this. Everybody has. I was in there tonight. I was in the store this evening, and it's sparsely done right now, but I'm sure there's going to be a lot more coming, and we're all looking forward to that. However, what it doesn't do, not the store, but the licenses in general, there's no monopoly. Everybody has an opportunity here to apply for those. They're on a first-come, first-served basis. I apologize for my voice. My son had a football game and won the other day, so this is the byproduct. But everybody has an opportunity and a chance to apply for those. So when you come in, you're first in line, you come to the town administrator, you put your application in, you say what you're going to do, you state your plans. If that becomes available, then you are willing to conform to what the requirements of that license are. A license is granted as a privilege. It is not a right. And we want to do this to the best extent that we can, to do the best that we can for the community. There is no backdoor dealing. There are no 11th hour agreements. This is all done in public. We've had hearings on this. We've had open meetings on this. Everybody is invited to come. To suggest otherwise, I'm sorry, is disingenuous, and that's wrong. So if somebody would like to come and apply for a license, please, by all means, do. There's a process that we follow. We're following that process now, and we'd love to have anybody that would like to do that come and do that. Thank you.
So now this discussion now is just on referring it back to the Board of Selectmen. As Town Council and I have discussed, the motion's in order, although the warrant article and the motion itself assumes that the Board of Selectmen are going to develop these definitions, but we'll still discuss it a little bit. Motion to refer it back to the Board of Selectmen. Yes, sir. Get you a microphone.
Hi, my name is Peter Beecham, and I live on Quarry Run in Rockport. I was the one that led the charge 10 years ago for us to get alcohol after it hadn't been accepted a number of efforts before that. And it was a very successful effort, and we've made it work, and it's come to the point where it's made a good economic income for the town of Rockport and for the merchants that are able to sell it. My question about having 3 wine stores in town is, I think you're making one of them go out of business. This is a small town of 7,000 people, you know, and to support 3 liquor stores, I don't think makes a lot of sense. However, you can change that if you make one of the licenses available so that you can have hard liquor, and that wouldn't drive the people out of town to get it. So I think it's something that should be considered, and I think that it will eventually happen anyways. I'm pretty sure, but I think that the idea of having a couple of wine stores and another wine store that also has hard liquor, so you don't have to go out of town to get your Grey Goose vodka or whatever your choices are. So I'm mixed about what we're trying to do here, but I understand, and I understand the effort and all the rest, but I don't want us to have 3 new businesses in town, and because we have brought in 2 others to compete with them, that somebody's not going to make it. That's my opinion.
Yes, sir. Dr. Lilia. We'll get you a microphone. And by the way, let's have a round of applause for our microphone people. Working hard. Thank you.
My feelings are that you have to make a decision as to whether or not you want a grocery store or whether you want a wine and cheese store. If the feeling of the town is that it's more important to the town to have a food store, then I think you have to give this food store a chance to get up and running. At a point in time when the food store is fully functional, satisfies the town, and looks like it has a future with the wine and beer license to support it, then maybe at that point you can start thinking about having a cheese shop or 2 cheese and wine shops. and the loss of revenue to the grocery store will not have quite the same impact that it will now when it's a fledgling operation trying to get going. So it's your choice. But if you want a food store, then I think you have to seriously consider whether or not wine and cheese is an appropriate complement at this time.
Okay, this is simply to talk about whether this goes back to the Board of Selectmen. Ellen?
Alan McMillan, 18 Story Street. Just a question, Mr. Moderator. We are now voting on whether to send this back for study, is that correct?
Study and definitions, right.
Okay. If we were to do that, would that deprive Mr. Smith of his license in doing that at this point?
Has nothing to do with Mr. Smith.
Thank you.
All right, anybody else want to talk about this? Referring for further study. Okay. Well, let Toby and then we'll hear
Toby
from-
Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. If you recall the last town meeting when the Board of Selectmen came forward with their amendment to Ian's article, the Board of Selectmen did have an extensive list of what were the requirements for these, strange licenses. And that was produced and projected up on the screen. So why we've slipped backwards and don't have that information now, I'm baffled. I'm against this flat out. I've been against the alcohol, all of it right from the beginning, and I'm against this too. But whether or not you're in favor of the alcohol or in favor of this particular sort of licenses, it might be a good and cautious thing to know exactly what we're getting, what the requirements for these stores will be. And when we're told that by Mr. Campbell that there have been numbers of hearings, I go to selectmen's meetings regularly. I don't think I've slept through an entire one, and there have been no discussions of these particular licenses. The Board of Selectmen have somehow, maybe communicating telepathically, decided that they're a good thing, but they've never discussed them.
Sarah? How did I know?
Yeah, it's green. Is that better? Okay, it's on. Okay, so the selectmen, in a public open meeting that maybe Toby wasn't at, which is shocking to me, but I think maybe he wasn't, we voted to put this article on the warrant at one meeting. At a subsequent meeting, we voted unanimously to support it, so we discussed it at a subsequent meeting. So contrary to what has been said here, there have been no secret I feel like we're having to defend ourselves all the time. There were no secret meetings, no secret dealings, no payoff, the usual.
Telepathic meetings?
Sadly. I will say that in town right now, we are, for lack of a better term, busting our butts to get some affordable housing going, to get the storefronts downtown full, to get younger families moving here, to get more families in the school system, to keep the teachers and policemen living here as well as working here. We have, in the past few years, adjusted our alcohol licenses to get more restaurants. And glory be, there are a few. You can now go out to eat in February in Rockport and get a glass of wine. All those are good things. But to say, let's see how the one store that is planning to open is going to do before we open more, when we have business owners willing and able to open other additional stores, just seems absolutely crazy to me. I've got to tell you, we have a line of people who want to open businesses here. We have a draft. The definition of a grocery store is set. That's taken care of. We have a list of people who want to open specialty stores here. We have a draft definition already set from the last town meeting. It just has to be adjusted. We literally have people banging on the door. Maybe that will bring more families here if there's more business here, just a guess. But to not support it so that we wait and see if the people living here currently shop at the one store that's trying to open just seems crazy. Let's give them a chance. We are trying to support local businesses, not shut them down. Thank you.
Okay, the motion is to refer this back for further study. If you want to refer this back for further study, press 1. If you don't want to refer this back for further study and you want to vote on it tonight, press 2, and then we'll keep talking about it. Okay, 1 is to refer it for further study, 2 is not to refer it to further study, and then we'll keep talking about it. Understand that? Okay, ready? Vote. Okay, we are not going to refer it back to further study. We're going to vote on it tonight. So now let's talk about the main motion. If there's anything left to talk about, or if our bottles are empty, we'll just vote on it. I'm going to move the question. So now we're going to be talking about the actual motion here to approve this Article G, as you see on page 37 and a little bit of 38 of your voters' booklet. A little bit of 36, 37, and 38. That's what we're voting on. Any questions? Okay. So 1 for yes, 2 for no. Vote. The motion carries. As was once said to Dustin Hoffman, plastics. We now move on to Article O, which will be followed by Article F, which will be C, D, E, and F. Chair will entertain a motion under Article O.
Mr. Moderator, Board of Selectmen member Denise Donnelly moves that the town amend Chapter 14 of the Town Code of Bylaws entitled Environmental Protection and Public Health as printed in the warrant and is set forth on pages 23 to 27 of the Fall Town Meeting Voters Booklet, and further, adding an effective date of March 1st, 2019, and further, by making the following changes in Section F, Single-Use Plastics Prohibition. Deleting the second paragraph under subsection A, purpose and intent. Inserting the word seafood in subsection C, use regulations under item D. Inserting end pay-as-you-throw bags and public trash barrel plastic liners in subsection C, use regulations, item D, after the word merchandise. And by amending subsection D, administration and enforcement, with the proposed fine to be as follows. 1, a warning for the first offense. 2, $100 fine for the second offense. 3, $200 fine for the third offense and each subsequent offense. Board of Selectmen and Government and Bylaw Committee support this article.
Moved and seconded. And I believe, if he's still here, we have some folks from the high school, and they have a spokesperson who is going to speak with us. So if you want to stand up, Mr. Kirby. What's that? And sitting there, who I thought he was still in high school, he looked so youthful, is our state senator, Bruce Tarr, is in the house. So thank you very much, Senator Tarr, for coming to our little village and gracing us with your presence.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nathaniel Kirby, and I'm here with Kat Rania, Jillian Tierney, and Amanda Verga. and we are the officers of the Rockport Public Schools Green Team. The Green Team is the school's student-run environmental group, and we have been studying the impacts of plastics to the environment and the impacts of a single-use consumer system. We believe that Seaside Sustainability's proposal for a single-use plastics ban on plastic bags, plastic stirrers, and plastic straws is a great step forward for the town of Rockport and confidently support this measure.
The impacts of single-use plastics, especially when improperly disposed, are huge. As a coastal community, plastics such as bags and straws can easily enter the ocean ecosystem and pose threats to marine animals. Many animals become entangled in plastics or ingest them, which results in millions of fish and bird fatalities, as well as approximately 100,000 marine mammal fatalities each year, according to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. Since these plastics do not biodegrade, they can be cycled through the ecosystem indefinitely. When a smaller fish consumes a plastic bag, any predator of that fish could fall victim as well. When these fish die, the plastic bag would still remain and could be consumed by another marine animal. Since we live on the ocean and rely on it for much of our livelihoods, we have an important responsibility to work against this form of pollution.
Plastics in the ocean pose threats beyond ingestion and entanglement of marine animals. Most plastics contain chemicals such as BPA. These leach into the ocean and can affect marine life. These chemicals then make their way into the food chain through fish, which are an essential part of many of our diets. On land, plastics can affect birds and other animals and make the town less virtually appealing, hurting our tourist-driven economy.
We believe that single-use plastic straws, stirrers, and bags are not necessary, as they are affordable, compostable alternatives that have much lower impacts. While plastic bags are technically recyclable, this is not economically feasible, as the process would cost far more than the value of the recycled product. Compostable alternatives are easily affordable for businesses, with unit prices usually within 1 to 2 cents of their more harmful counterparts, and thus are a far better option for our town. Therefore, we suggest eliminating plastic bags, stirrers, and straws and replacing them with compostable or preferably reusable alternatives which are easily obtainable. Most supermarkets offer reusable grocery bags for a very small cost. This would fit into a cyclical economic model based upon use and reuse, and ultimately resulting in a system that builds capital long-term by protecting and conserving our resources. By banning these single-use plastics, as Seaside Sustainability proposes, Rockport can join what many towns and cities have already done and would support a more sustainable model for the use of our resources.
We thank Seaside Sustainability for its leadership in protecting and improving our world through this plastic ban. Now it is time for each Rockport resident to act by voting to protect our beautiful town and the waters that surround it through banning plastic bags, straws, and stirrers. Please vote yes on the ban. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your participation in our meeting. We really appreciate it.
Could you clarify some of the changes that are on that you have up there? I can't even match what section we're in.
Okay, clarifications. First of all, the Government and Bylaw Committee has looked at this issue, and their report is in your voters' booklet. Anyone want to talk about the changes? Denise.
Hello? Okay. Denise Donnelly. I'll try to remember all of them. So we neglected to include an effective date of the bylaws, so we added March 1st as an effective date to give all of our business people and merchants time to prepare for the transition. Just as a point of information, the Gloucester ordinance eliminating plastic bags takes effect January 1st of 2019, so will be happening close by, sooner than our article if it is approved. I don't remember what deleting the second paragraph under subsection A. Maybe somebody from the bylaw committee can remind me. Yes? Microphone.
Why don't you go on to the next one?
Okay, the next one is we wanted to allow for the use of wrapping seafood in plastic bags. That seemed appropriate. There were some exceptions that were allowed. And we are exempting pay-as-you-throw bags and public trash barrel plastic liners, just as a belt and suspenders provision to make sure that it's clear that those are allowed. And then,
Be a good revenue resource if you didn't prohibit that.
yes, exactly.
Charlie Seavey, 18 Frank Street. I'm the somewhat reluctant chairman of the committee involved. The section we removed was basically what the kids said. All the studies that are shown and all that, but the committee felt it was not, it didn't really have anything to do with the administration of the bylaws once they were passed. It was interesting, but not critical to make the thing work right. We added seafood, because after all, it's Rockport and, ocean and all that stuff. And we simplified a few little bits of the language. So it's the rewrites on page 11 and 12. That's what we sent to the town when we were finished with it. It just clarifies it a little bit.
And this is an appropriate time to thank all the volunteer committees, including the Government and Bylaw Committee. It is getting harder and harder to find volunteers with everybody being so busy, and it's so difficult, I guess, to afford to live in this community. People have to work second and third jobs, but we appreciate all of the volunteers, whatever you can give. I was struck at a recent Board of Selectmen's meeting at the wonderful qualifications of the volunteers that come before the Board of Selectmen. And so if you have a special talent or, training and experience, education, and you're not volunteering for something, come on down. We'll find a position for you, and we'll be very glad to accept all that you can give to the town. And I know that probably most of you in the room are on a committee and do volunteer, so appreciate it. Anything further? Yes, ma'am. Stand up and we'll get you a microphone.
I just have a few questions.
Please just state your name for our records, if you would.
Ray Francor, 87 Main Street.
Thank you.
The fines, are they levied against us if we use a plastic bag to pick up dog poop in front of our house? Are the fines levied against businesses who supply plastic bags to shoppers?
Dog poop question.
The latter. So they're not levied against individuals. They apply to businesses that supply plastic bags.
And are there alternatives?
Oh, let's not have conversations. We
no, I
have
have
a
more
whole
questions.
bunch of people who have to ask questions here. Anybody else? I guess no. Go ahead.
I had a few questions about plastic bags. When people are in town, we have dispensers for plastic bags so that tourists can pick up dog poop. Are those going to go away?
Another dog poop question. We're only allowed 2, by the way, per meeting. And there's a reason for that.
We'll find an alternative. I do know that compostable dog poop bags exist, so we'll investigate that.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody else? No dog poop questions, but in the back, Katie.
Kathleen Cahill, 3 Mount Pleasant Street, and owner of Katie's Gift Shop. I have a question regarding Gloucester is starting their ban in January. What was the lead time on that? Because currently this is 6 months, and I buy my plastic bags Well, the minimum I have to buy is 5,000, and that's usually a 2 or 3 year supply. And I think Gloucester had a much longer lead time coming into this.
Anyone been to Gloucester? Toby, have you been to Gloucester? Anybody else? Go ahead.
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I'm looking at page 45, I think it is. I'm blind. I'm startled by what I see. Use regulations. C, customers are encouraged to bring their own reusable or compostable bags to retail establishments. Retail establishments are strongly encouraged to make reusable bags available for sale to customers at a reasonable price. All of that is admirable, and none of it's enforceable, and we shouldn't be cluttering up the bylaws with encourage this or encourage that, as I said about the zoning earlier, and it's not enforceable. And that was not in what was presented at the Government and Bylaw Committee meeting, if you want to call it. It's not a hearing, but the meeting when they approved it. That section was not in there because I had seen it before and it had been taken out. So I'm puzzled, and I guess, it's trivial, offended by that. Would someone comment on who's going to do the encouraging and who's going to produce the bags? There were also a list of exceptions. Seafood has been altered, and I think dry cleaning bags were accepted. My feeling is if we're going to do it, we might as well do it for most everything. Why some special uses should be exempted or others. Having said those things, I think the whole thing is worth having. I also wonder, if we're trying to do the best we can with the bags and avoid them getting into the sea, the gutters, what have you, the Market Basket manages to collect the plastic bags. Why can't we do the same at the dump? Would someone, tell us why we can't collect the plastic bags at the dump? And could we have a comment on the encouraged sections?
Eric.
Yeah, Eric Hutchins, 45 Pools Lane. I certainly support this article, but two comments I want to make. One is in respect to the question that Toby just raised, and unfortunately, we're not going to be able to recycle our way out of refuse. We're creating and using too much refuse. Too much just goes in the wastebasket. You can put all the recycling buckets. That's not going to be the long-term answer for this town, this state, the world. We have to do source reduction, for one. But I do have a question, and it's a dog poop question related, and it's legit. Newspapers. I'm just curious about the language, and maybe this is a future article, where it says, that is provided at the point of sale for transport. Does this mean all the newspapers that get delivered in plastic bags are exempt by definition? And is that something to address in the future, that they have to switch to a recyclable bag? I'm okay with if it's recyclable or not, but does this affect the newspaper deliveries? Thank you.
Denise.
Newspaper deliveries are exempt.
Okay. Newspaper deliveries are exempt, and no more questions about dog poop. Yes, sir.
Okay, it's on. Andrew Bates, 192 South Street. Some of you actually might know me, just my face alone. I've worked at the dump for the past 12 years over by the recycling compactor, so I have seen a great number of you trying to recycle the plastic bags. So all of your hearts are in the right place, but it's really not up to myself or my boss. It's up to the company that we've employed to lease the compactors, Dynamic Waste Systems. They can't use the plastic bags in their systems. It's only, excuse me, it's water bottles, anything that contain food or drinks are allowed in there. The plastic bags, when you have them, I collect them out of the compactors, but I have to put them in a trash barrel, wheel them over to the trailer, and then we dispose of them properly. They get taken to a plant where the trash gets incinerated for electric turbines. So the plastic bag ban, I fully support. It would make my job a little bit easier, and I think it would help out the community and also the environment completely. Thank you.
We'll get your microphone on your right.
Jonathan Ring, 9 Pools Lane. It just seems to me like we're creating more regulations for small businesses to follow in this town. I want the environment to be better and recycling to be better. I don't know if this is the exact way to do it. We just voted on another article before this to try to attract more businesses in town. Now we're giving the small businesses more regulations to follow and penalties to be placed on them if they don't follow them. I think that we need to rethink that. Thank you.
You've heard the motion. Question? Oh, Jane. We'll get your microphone.
I'm Jay Smith at 45 Mount Pleasant Street, and a couple things on this. I have to admit I was not paying attention, but did I hear that trash bags can't be sold? That liners or public barrels are exempt, but that trash bags can't be sold?
That's
Well, we'll get you the answer to that. Is there more to your question, or is that it?
Just we at our 2A stores have been fully paper bag, non-plastic for 2 years now, except there's one bag that's really, thank you, there's one bag that's really, really a good bag for a lot of products, but we can't find a paper substitute for it. So is there anything in there for exceptions to when there's nothing else that's going to do the job? Another thing, just thinking about reading the straws, I know that some places have the straw ban that they're not given, but they're only given on a request. So I wonder if that might be middle ground that would address both of them. But those are my thoughts.
Plastic trash bags are exempt, so they can be sold.
All right. You have heard the motion. If you are in favor of this, you are going to press 1. If you are opposed, 2. 1 for yes, 2 for no. Ready? Vote. Motion carries. We now go into the community preservation motions, which are C, D, E, and F.
Mr. Moderator, CPC Chair Phil Crotty moves that the town hear and receive the report of the Community Preservation Committee. Board of Selectmen support this article.
Lieutenant Colonel Crotty.
I move that the town hear and receive the report of the Community Preservation Committee.
All right, any further discussions on that? All those in favor of receiving that report, which is in your booklet, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. We move on to D.
Mr. Moderator, CPC Chair Phil Crotty moves that $58,850 be transferred from FY19 estimated annual revenues of the Community Preservation Fund to the Community Preservation Fund Community Housing Reserve Account.
Moved and seconded. All right, and there are 3 different motions, is that correct?
Correct.
All right, do you wish to speak on any of them? No?
Say that again?
You ready? You want to speak on these?
We're ready to proceed.
What's that?
We're ready to proceed.
Okay.
you want them all read out now, Mr. Moderator, or do you want one at a time?
Let's work on the first one. We'll do the first one.
Mr. Moderator, CPC Chair Phil Crotty moves that $58,850 be transferred from the FY19 estimated annual revenues of the Community Preservation Fund to the Community Preservation Fund Community Housing Reserve Account.
Moved and seconded. Okay, Phil. All right, no comment on this one. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Second motion.
Mr. Moderator, CPC Chair Phil Crotty moves that $58,850 be transferred from the FY19 estimated annual revenues of the Community Preservation Fund to the Community Preservation Fund Open Space and Recreation Reserve Account.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously, and the first one was unanimous. We now move on to the third one.
Mr. Moderator, CPC Chair Phil Crotty moves that $58,850 be transferred from FY19 estimated annual revenues of the Community Preservation Fund to the Community Preservation Fund Historic Preservation Reserve Account.
Any discussion? You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Any opposed? Motion carries, and it was unanimous. We now move on to E.
Mr. Moderator, CPC Chair Phil Crotty moves that $31,200 be appropriated and transferred from the Community Preservation, Open Space, and Recreation Reserve Account and expended under the direction of the Thatcher and Straitsmith Islands Town Committee, working with the Community Preservation Committee, for the creation, preservation, construction, and installation of improvements to visitor access on Straitsmith Island, including all incidental and related expenses.
Okay. All right. I think we're ready.
Keep going?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Moderator, first motion again, Mr. Moderator?
Yeah, the first motion. Phil, do you have any discussion on the first motion?
I think we got ahead of ourselves a little bit.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
Can you back it up?
Yep.
Back
So
it
this is the
more?
first motion. You read it.
Back
Yeah.
Back
We're
it
on
more?
E first. So we're on Thatcher and Straitsmith.
It's supposed to be the photo of the Congregational Church and Millbrook
I
Meadow.
don't see it. We'll go. We'll start with Straitsmith and we'll see if we can find it later.
Okay, may I give my little
Yes, please.
summation here?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. I'm Phil Crotty. I'm chairman of the Rockport Community Association, Rockport Community Preservation Committee. I live at 1 Atlantic Avenue. This committee, we're here to present 7 applications, which the committee has reviewed and approved, and which we now submit for your approval. The committee consists of 9 members. Will the members present please stand? They work hard, they're volunteers, and I appreciate their work. Our committee accepts applications for funding by a specified date at the beginning of each year. We typically receive 6 to 10 applications and generally receive approximately $600,000 to fund the projects. The funding comes from a 3% addition to your property tax bill, plus a fluctuating match from the state. On the screen are 2, well, there's one, and there should be another one, of our most significant recent projects. More information, financials, and the 2019 application will be available on our town website in October. The Community Preservation Committee can entertain applications from each of 4 allowable areas: open space, recreation, historic preservation, and affordable housing. Each area is represented this year. This year, the total we recommend to you for funding is $509,000. And now we'll turn to the projects. The first project is Straitsmith Island. And I'll ask Paul St. Germain of the Thatcher Island Committee to join me up here in case there are any questions about the money that would be allocated to the Straitsmith Island project.
Are there any questions about the Straitsmith project? Paul, do you want to take a minute and tell us what you're going to use the money for?
Okay. Thank you. Paul St. Germain, 74 Marmion Way. I'm president of the Thatcher Island Association. I put this request in context, I think. This request is for 3 different projects on Straitsmith. One is for a footbridge that we want to rebuild that goes from the keeper's house to the lighthouse so that we can provide safe access to the lighthouse for visitors. The second one is for a public composting toilet, which will not require a special septic system and be much safer for the environment. And the third item is a hydraulic winch that we can use to tow our launch boat up the new ramp that's being constructed out there right now. The association is providing half the funding for this. This overall project is $62,400, and we're providing the other $31,200. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about it.
Are there any questions? You've heard the motion. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. We move on to the second motion. Thank you, Paul.
Mr. Moderator, CPC Chair Phil Crotty moves that $15,000 be appropriated and transferred from the Community Preservation, Open Space and Recreation Reserve account and expended under the oversight of the Director of Public Works and DPW Board of Commissioners, working with the Community Preservation Committee for the creation, construction, and installation of a handicapped accessible entrance ramp to Evans Field, including all incidental and related expenses.
All right, any further discussion on this one? Phil? Anything? All right, Toby?
I want to know whether we got the easement, because it's not going on town property. It's on the MBTA's property. It's a question for the Board of Selectmen. Do we have the easement?
Mitch can speak to that.
Mr. Moderator, through you, Mitch Vieira, Interim Town Administrator. We're in the process of working with the MBTA to obtain the necessary easements. We're going through the process, which is extensive, with their real estate division. We've spoken with DPW, and I have spoken about that, and we're working on it.
Okay. All right, anything further? You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Motion carries. We move on to the third one.
Mr. Moderator, CPC Chair Phil Crotty moves that $35,000 be appropriated and transferred from the Community Preservation, Open Space and Recreation Reserve account and expended under the oversight of the Director of Public Works and DPW Board of Commissioners, working with the Community Preservation Committee to hire a consulting engineering firm to assess and develop plans for restoration, rehabilitation, and preservation of Harvey Park and Barletta Park.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Yes, ma'am. We'll get you a microphone. Here we go.
Stephanie Wolf, 6 Pointe-de-Chêne Avenue. I'm chair of the Beautification Committee of the town of Rockport. The Beautification Committee is charged with overseeing the public spaces in the town of Rockport. We have done extensive worked with CPC and with DPW on back beach, front beach, you name it. We are all over town, and we are aiming to have some consistency in town and to make it a better place, both for us and for our tourists. Beautification Committee has been a part of this discussion, which has been going on for several years. Various plans have been proposed, and we did meet with the DPW commissioners, and we did also meet with the CPC and work very closely with the DPW department. And I do want to let townspeople know that, like the Millbrook Meadow Committee, which I'm also part of, and which is made up of a dedicated group of local townspeople who took the good work of consultants and geared it and tweaked it and made it what Rockport wants to have. This is not going to be a case where $35,000 is going to be spent for an outside firm to come up with what they think Barletta Park and Harvey Park are supposed to look like, but rather that there is a dedicated group of local townspeople that will be taking that information, mostly talking with all the stakeholders, all the people that use that park. And since we're not going to be doing this again probably for 50 years, we want to get it right the first time. So it is, the Beautification Committee, local townspeople are definitely involved in this. Thank you.
And thank you for the work that you do. Yes, we'll get you a microphone. Maybe we'll get you each a microphone.
Hi, I'm Ira Levine, 220 Granite Street. And well, I appreciate that some folks might want to, in quotes, beautify Harvey Park and Barletta Park. They seem quite functional and reasonable to me as is. So I guess I'm not, maybe it is my personal ignorance, but I'm not understanding why we need to spend this money on a consultant to, in quotes, improve both properties. Thank you.
We'll get you an answer for that question. We'll get you a microphone, ma'am.
Maybe the director
Phil.
of the DPW can answer that question?
Well, let's hear from that young lady.
Okay.
I want to reassure townspeople that just because $35,000 is allotted, $35,000 need not be spent. I drive to town hall to pay my bills rather than buy a stamp. So I think that people who know me know that we would not be spending money needlessly. We have not spent all of the money that CPC gave us for Front Beach, and so all of that has not been spent, and we don't spend money needlessly. As I said, we really would like to get it right, since it's not going to be done probably again for a long time. And as far as the issues, the various people that use the park have found that the lack of true open space in the front of the park, in the middle of the park, is an issue. There are some trees that are dead, which is an issue. There is a lot of uneven pavement, and so it's mostly in terms of making it more accessible to the groups that use it and making it safer for townspeople. There is also an exit to a parking space. So the design when the hedges were put in was not exactly well thought out. So although the park does work well for a lot of reasons, we think it could work better. Thank you.
Joe, can
Anybody else? Toby?
Toby Arsenian, 95 Granite Street. I've heard it discussed at a number of DPW commissioners' meetings. My understanding was that the Beautification Committee did come up with a plan for the park, and that after they came up with the plan, there were cries of protest from some of the people who are referred to as the stakeholders, I suppose the farmers market. and they were concerned that their specific concerns were not accommodated. It seems to me extravagant to spend $35,000 for professional consultants for the park when we had plans that have been done already. If the plans were for some reason unsatisfactory, we take 2 steps back and then maybe we take 3 steps forward without spending the $35,000. I mean, it does need to have the sidewalks repaired. They're dangerous. And I've complained every time there've been talked of the plans, asking for a reassurance that we're going to replace the marvelous circle of huge granite blocks intact somewhere else, and I don't get a promise. I think we could spare ourselves the $35,000 and turn it back to the DPW and the Beautification Committee, and they would be more likely to listen to the concerns of residents than any outside consultant.
Joe Parisi, Director of Public Works. It was the Department of Public Works, myself, and the Beautification Committee that put this request to the Preservation Committee because we want to see the efforts at Harvey Park and Bullheaded Park work. And we did make some efforts. The Beautification Committee did some preliminary designs. There's a lot of different things that can be done at the parks, but we do need to have the input from the residents, from the users of the park, and we want to design something that's going to last and it's going to work for all the uses of the parks. There are certainly some concerns about the conditions. The walkways need help. We want to make sure that the design effort is done correctly. We have great volunteer efforts here, but we want to have some professional help, both to solicit gather the information from the users, from anybody who would give us their comments on the improvements that need to be done and any suggestions that come out. And we want to make sure we get a set of design plans that we could really construct from. It is, a considerable amount of money, but I think it's money well spent up front to make sure that we get it right. And as Stephanie says, we certainly do not need to spend all of it if the task is easier, but if we do find ourselves in depth with a lot of construction designing that we have to do, a lot of public input. We want listening sessions that will be held to gather this information. We want to make sure we have enough funding to do that. So I think this is an important project to get underway, and I think this money is well spent to make sure we get it designed right and we get a good park at the end of the day. So I hope you support the project. Thank you.
Matt.
Matt Wigton, 11 Summer Street, but I'm speaking on behalf of the First Baptist Church of Rockport, which does own approximately half of the property that is considered Harvey Park, and we are in full support of this initiative. It's just worth noting a little bit of the history behind Harvey Park, that back in the 1920s, George Harvey, who was a member of the church, purchased both portions of land and gave the park to the town and the church for combined use. And there's been a great history of the town and the church working together since then for the benefit of the community. However, since the 1920s, there's been no extensive work done. We have some beautiful pictures back from the 1920s showing what it looked like originally, but what's happened since then is just sort of whoever has had an idea, whether it be in the town or some club in town, has done whatever they've wanted to in the park. So a lot of what's in the park doesn't make sense. So having people who know what they're doing with landscape architecture coming in and evaluating it from a professional standpoint makes a lot of sense. So the church is fully behind this and supports this idea.
All right, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. We move on to the fourth one.
Mr. Moderator, CPC Chair Phil Crotty moves that $25,000 be appropriated and transferred from the Community Preservation, Open Space, and Recreation Reserve account and expended under the oversight of the Director of Public Works and DPW Board of Commissioners, working with the Community Preservation Committee for plantings and contractor services for the restoration, rehabilitation, and preservation of Davis Park.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Ellen?
Alan Macmillan, 18 Story Street. The motion just made by the
Acting
Mitch.
Administrator.
Thank you. Made by Mitch.
Interim.
Says to hire a consulting engineering firm to assess and develop plans for restoration, et cetera. The summary explanation says something totally different, to spend $25,000 to restore Davis Park. I'm on the Conservation Commission. I was down there this afternoon. There are a lot of environmental issues down there. Although a order of conditions was issued by the Conservation Commission last November, there seems to be a misunderstanding by the group that wants to do this work and the Conservation Commission over what that work involves. The proposal is to take out virtually everything that's there and replant with native plants. But part of the park is on a steep slope down to the ocean. We're coming into winter. Certainly don't want any of that disturbed. And under state law through the Wetlands Protection Act, you can't disturb anything within 25 feet of the edge of the coastal bank. The list goes on and on. So there is a very great difference between the motion and the explanation. And I'd like to hear from someone on that.
Anyone want to speak to that?
Hi, I'm Stu Mellon, 38 Atlantic Avenue. I'm the president of the Old Garden Beach Association. Anyone who has gone to Old Garden Beach 10 years ago remembers the giant stalks of Japanese knotweed. At one time, the DPW needed to go there and cut it with chainsaws. Old Garden Beach has a long, strong history of completing erosion projects, and one of them was to remove the knotweed. We went through Concom. Concom's recommendation, which we're going to do at Davis Park, when all the vegetation is removed, we're going to plant a salt-tolerant seed that will be deep-rooted, will prevent erosion, and it will establish quickly. And while that is establishing, we're going to plant the berry plants. They will take 3 years to establish. We have an underground irrigation system that's going to assist with that. And if you want to see a demonstration of a project that's already been done, go to Old Garden Beach and look right in front of you, and you will see the native grasses. You will also see the migration of native species coming back into the area. Seaside goldenrod, the beach pea. Every year, we know the ocean changes the coastal bank. We have a successful project on the coastal bank where we removed all the vegetation, quickly planted grass, and this was directed by Concom several years ago, 2013. I know because I presented it at Concom, and it was very, very successful. That's going to be the template that we're going to use at Davis Park. Now, as far as the other plantings, we're going to plant blueberries. Most people here probably have great memories of picking blueberries in the Headlands area. This is a species that we know existed, we want to see come back, and we want to enjoy. The park was bequeathed to the town with the one condition that it's kept cut down so it doesn't obstruct the view of the ocean for all to enjoy. We are going to go through the park, redo the pathways because the pathways have become eroded and the fabric has begun to rip and is becoming a mess. We need the park to be more accessible for landscaping. If you look at the Davis Park property on the left is an abutter, and right along that paper road is very high growth, high trees, and Old Garden Beach has used a lot of its funds to cut down this growth. every year. Old Garden Beach has used volunteers to pull the invasive species out of Davis Park and Old Garden Beach for many years. People may go down there now and look at it and say, well, what's the problem? A lot of it, there is no problem, because the problem has been corrected for many years by volunteers of the association. We plan on continuing to do a compassionate, thorough rehab of Davis Park. We are going to keep certain trees. We're going to keep that mulberry tree, which is a beautiful tree to the left of the blueberry grove. That was not in the original design created by a landscape designer who has experience with coastal plantings, native plantings. We're going to keep that mulberry tree. We don't, less is more. We don't want to rip everything out. If we see plantings that work, we will use them, but we do want to open up the park for people to use. Davis Park is being used more now than it ever has been. People are walking up Old Garden Beach, tourists, through Davis Park over to Old Garden Beach. We want to continue to open that up, create a manageable space. The CPC has used the funding to redo Davis Park. What you see there in 2006, CPC funding was done. That was all overgrown. There was a lot that was totally ignored. That was all cleared. So this is an extension of the original Davis Park project. It's just focusing on the lower vegetation that is overgrown, and it takes a lot of work, a lot of money to keep the paths clear, to keep the growth cut down. We want to improve accessibility for all. We
Thank
want to plant species that everyone can enjoy. We want to plant along the left side red cedar trees as a screening for that abutter. We believe that that will work, and that will make that area manageable. Old Garden Beach adopted Davis Park. All set? Old Garden Beach adopted Davis Park many years ago, so we just want to continue with that.
Thank you.
Was there a misstated article or motion that we could pay attention to?
We'll work on that, but we'll hear from this young lady. We'll grab a microphone.
I'm Betsy Carter. I live at 220 Granite Street, and I'd like to speak strongly against this idea. I'm quite concerned about it. What is growing in the park now, yes, I know they took a lot of invasive plants out of there, which is great, but what's growing there now is native. It's all suckering plants. It grows like that, so it holds the bank. And if you've ever walked there, it's very, very steep. Grasses, where you planted the grasses where they took out the bamboo by the beach, it's flat. So the grasses took, and they're in, but where the park is, where they want to take the plants out, it's a very steep incline. The blueberries that they've planted, half of them are dying now already. You can't count on plants to grow fast enough to hold the bank and keep the park looking good. Personally, I think it looks fine the way it is. I don't know why it even needs pruning. Bayberry doesn't get that tall. You don't even have to prune it if you don't want to. So I would strongly urge that we don't repeat Sandpiper Park, and that we leave this park as is for all to enjoy, because it's really beautiful.
All right, you've heard the motion. Oh, we have a question. Yes, sir.
Oh, got a stretch. Paul Coltajon, 11 Pleasant Street, Rockport. If I'm not mistaken, I believe Davis...
Keep that microphone right up.
Davis Park was donated by the Davis family, and it was to be left in its natural state. Now comes into act Chapter 131, Section 40, yes, the Wetland Protection Act. Now, that land is land that definitely needs protection. Even those pucker briars in there are important so that the whole bank is not erode over. And it can happen. It happened over near Cape Heads Beach, that wonderful park with all the soil. There's no soil anymore, it's gone. I'd hate to see Old Garden Beach happen and go the same way. But if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Davis family said that this land should be left in its natural state. You could be checking on that one.
And I'll state that if you go into Old Garden Beach parking lot.
Sir, Stu.
Eric Hutchins, 45 Pools Lane. I know the site fairly well, but one thing I actually didn't hear is actually what's broken or wrong. Through that whole description, I didn't hear what is wrong with Davis Park insofar as the coastal bank that's being fixed. All I actually heard was is to cut the vegetation low for viewscape, which I'm not supportive of this type of landscaping to support that desire. I understand it, but I didn't hear anything else that's actually broken. Could give some clarification? Is there something actually that needs fixing?
Mr. Mellon, go ahead.
The original drive for this project was to gain additional access for landscaping. If we left the park in its natural state and didn't cut anything, we know Japanese knotweed would grow up, just as it did by the parking lot. So what is broken, as you see in the picture, it's not up there now, the park was redone in 2006. It was not left in its natural state. There was a lawn area filled in up above. There were access trails installed with filter fabric throughout the park. This is an attempt to improve access to the lower parts of the park for maintenance and because the Old Garden Beach Association was paying for the maintenance because we found the ocean view was being obstructed. And if you look at Davis Park now, you will see the left-hand side of the park is obstructed. The ocean view is obstructed on the left-hand side quite a bit. We paid a significant amount of money, and we do every year, to hire a landscaper to go in there to remove invasives, as well as clear the pathways, as well as cut down the vegetation. If that lot is left unattended, that lot will grow up very high, and it will be more of an issue. This is an attempt to beautify this area and make it manageable and to create a natural environment. We've done it successfully through erosion control by planting grasses along the coastal boundary. That coastal boundary is much steeper than Davis Park. I know because I've pulled the knotweed out. And I have to be it's all riprap. You have to be very careful pulling the knotweed out. It's a very, very steep incline on the coastal bank. That is more prone to erosion than the Davis Park area.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to vote now. I happen to have the deed from Christina Davis, C. Davis, unmarried, grant to the inhabitants of the town of Rockport a certain parcel of land. And the last paragraph says, said land is hereby conveyed to the said town of Rockport for park purposes and upon the condition that this land shall not be built on and shall remain forever open and in its present condition so as to afford the public an unencumbered view of the sea. And that's dated April 14, 1961. You've heard the motion. If you are in favor, you are going to press 1. If you are opposed, you are going to press 2. Are you ready? Vote. The motion carries. We move on to the 5th motion. Mitch.
Mr. Moderator, CPC Chair Phil Crotty moves that $52,800 be appropriated and transferred from the Community Preservation Historic Preservation Reserve account as a grant to Rockport Art Association, a nonprofit corporation duly organized under the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, to be expended under the direction of the Board of Selectmen working with the Community Preservation Committee for improvements to the roof for the historic restoration, rehabilitation, and preservation of the Rockport Art Museum building located at 12 Main Street, and particularly the Hibbard Gallery, and as may be necessary to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept an historic preservation restriction in said building.
Moved and seconded.
I'm Heidi Caswell-Zander, Vice President of the Rockport Art Association and Museum. And we came to the CPC because Rockport Art Association and Museum's been in the community almost 100 years. And we actually had to put off one exhibit 2 years ago because there was evidence that we couldn't use the Hibbard Gallery for artwork from outside because we couldn't assure that there wouldn't be moisture and leakage. And so needing to restore the building to its usable state, we came to the CPC for a matching grant. So that's what we've asked for. We went and I discussed it with the Historic Commission, and they also felt that the Art Association staying in the buildings that it has is an important part of historic downtown of Rockport. So that's why we're asking for the money. And we're trying to increase what we're doing for the community. We do a lot of community events in the building and are doing a lot outside of the walls, but we do need that building to really continue what we're doing.
Okay, any questions, comments? All right, you've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. We move on, and thank you very much, Heidi. We move on now to the sixth motion.
Mr. Moderator, CPC Chair Phil Crotty moves that $250,000 be appropriated and transferred from the Community Preservation Community Housing Reserve account as a grant to Harbor Light Community Partners, Inc., a nonprofit corporation duly organized under the laws of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, for the creation, construction, and establishment of affordable community housing, and as may be necessary, to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept an affordable housing restriction in such housing in connection therewith.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All right. You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. Thank you. That was helpful. All right. The seventh motion.
Mr. Moderator, CPC Chair Phil Crotty moves that $100,000 be appropriated and transferred from the Community Preservation Undesignated Fund account to the Conservation Trust Fund to be administered by the Rockport Conservation Commission to be used for purposes consistent with the Community Preservation Act.
Moved and seconded.
That's Woodland Acres, the last corpus of funds that the Community Trust Fund was used to buy.
Mr. Parra.
Armand DeParo, 8 Brooks Road. This is pretty straightforward. What we're looking to do is rebuild the Community Trust Fund so that when another piece of land like Woodland Acres becomes available, we'll have the funding for it. Really, the bottom line is that 100 years from today, people are going to look back and say, it's amazing when land was so cheap and so much of it that they decided to save some. But if you ever looked at historical pictures, you can see clear to the coast, down to Marmion Way, all towards Granite Street. So things change, and this is an opportunity to save a core piece of habitat in perpetuity. Thank you.
You've heard the motion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries unanimously. And I think that's it for CPC. Thank you very much, Colonel.
Thank you all, and make sure you get your applications in for your favorite project. We're looking for 10 good ones, and we've got money to spend, so if you're with a department, a committee, or an organization that fits into one of our 4 categories, historic preservation, affordable housing, open space acquisition, or recreation, come see us by certainly the end of January, but it'll probably be more like the middle of January. There'll be more posted on our website. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we move on to Article P.
Mr. Moderator, Finance Committee Member Don Southard moves that the town appropriate by transfer the sum of $24,004 from the school bus purchase capital account to the school department to offset the cost of purchasing new buses. Board of Selectmen and Finance Committee support this article.
Moved and seconded. I certainly hope this one doesn't stall. Any discussion? You've heard the motion. All those in favor say beep, beep. Opposed, say no. Motion carries and it's unanimous. Chair will now entertain a motion to dissolve this meeting. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? No. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no.